everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I could not be more excited to get to host another fabulous Power to Fly Chat and Learn event. Today's event or today's subject, I'm going to be moderating a conversation with Sheryl Battles, who's the VP of Global Diversity, Inclusion, and Employee Engagement at Pitney Bowes. And we're going to talk about the key to being an effective leader in the 21st century. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go through some simple housekeeping rules so that we can make sure that this is a safe and comfortable space for everyone. Now, if this is your first Power to Fly event, this stuff will be especially important. And if that's the case, welcome. We're so happy to meet you. The love is absolutely real for our frequent flyers. Thank you all so much for joining us too. So the big thing that you should know about all of our virtual events is that they're about you. We want to make sure that y'all get the value that you came to get from today's session. So you're really welcome to participate in any way you'd like. You're welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like. No worries if you are less than Instagram perfect. We just want to meet you where you are, y'all. So feel free to turn your cameras on if you'd like. You're also welcome to head over into that group chat. I'm always interested to see how far our global audience spreads. So if you'd like, please let us know where you're located or where you're joining us from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio, land that traditionally belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So feel free to let us know where you're joining from, or if you know whose land you're on. Now, this conversation is being recorded. So what that means for all of you is you get to sit back and relax. In about 2 to 4 business days after today's chat, you're going to get a rewatch email with a link to our recording. Now, please note that if you are on camera, you might show up on the live recording, but as long as you stay on mute, that should not be an issue for anyone. So if you've got any kind of privacy concerns or anything there, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I'm happy to help you out. Now, we also, y'all, I'm looking at the chat here. Okay, so we've got Fort Lauderdale, Denver, NYC, Chicago, India, Chicago-ish, so Joliet, welcome. Love. Oh, North Carolina, Kentucky. I love seeing all y'all chime in there, so thank you so much. Vegas, Atlanta, New Jersey. Oh, loving it here, y'all. All right, so if you have questions while we go through today's event, we really want to encourage you to participate. You came to be here with us live, so we want to make sure we reward y'all for that. If you've got any questions or comments that you want to share, throw those into the chat box. If you have any questions or comments, but you want to remain anonymous, no worries, just DM me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown in your Zoom meeting chat window. Now, we do have a very special guest joining us today from Pitney Bowes, but before I introduce you to her, I just want to highlight a quick little explainer about who they are. So Pitney Bowes is a global shipping and mailing company that provides technology, logistics, and financial services to more than 90% of the Fortune 500. Now, from helping clients use data to maximize customer relations, to optimizing mailing solutions and securing payments through statements and invoicing, Pitney Bowes delivers innovations that help clients navigate the complex and ever-evolving world of commerce. Now, I'm going to throw a link here in the chat. So if you are curious and want to check out their company page, it looks much like what you see on the slide in front of you. If you're interested in joining their team, or if anything that you hear today kind of piques your interest on them, head over to their page, check out what options and available opportunities they have right now. There's also something called the Follow Network. So on the slide in front of you, there's a big pink button that says Follow at the top. That button exists on every company page on powertofly.com, but obviously I recommend you check out Pitney Bowes. Clicking that button does some great things for you, but the short list of it is that it allows Power to Fly to take some of the weight off of your job search. We let you know when they post new roles, but we also tell Pitney Bowes that you're interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. So it's a really awesome option if you are currently seeking a new opportunity, but maybe don't see anything right away on Pitney Bowes' page that really calls your name and really you want to apply for. So really good option there. Also, if you're not actively seeking, but something interests you, click that follow button. That way, when you come back to Power to Fly later on and you are curious about what opportunities might be out there, you already have a short list of companies that you know that you are interested in. So definitely take advantage of that feature of the website and check out Pitney Bowes' company page. Now, I'm really excited to introduce you to today's speaker. So Sheryl Battles is joining us. As I said earlier, she's the VP of Global Diversity, Inclusion, and Employee Engagement at Pitney Bowes. Now, Sheryl currently leads Pitney Bowes strategies, operations, and storytelling at the intersection of diversity, inclusion, and engagement to help create value and growth for all. Now, she is a seasoned C-suite and organizational advisor whose previous leadership roles include speechwriter as well as executive communications for 3 CEOs, not an easy task, media relations, as well as crisis issues and management. Now, Sheryl has won numerous national and regional awards, including 2023 Top 25 Outstanding Leadership and Diversity Impact Award. She was also awarded the Top 50 Women Leaders of Connecticut. Now, Sheryl is a graduate of Stanford University with a degree in human biology, and she sits on several boards of directors, including Greenwich Hospital, which is part of the Yale New Haven Health System. Sheryl, I'm so excited to welcome you to the stage today. Of that incredibly impressive bio, is there anything else our talent and our community members here should know about you?
No, I think we can just jump right in, Meg. I'm very happy to be here today. Always honored to represent Pitney Bowes and talk about leadership, something that is certainly comes to mind on a day like today. We would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that this is indeed 9/11. It took real leadership for the country, for those in the tri-state area to rebuild and go forward afterwards. So we honor those who were sacrificed, and we really continue to support the families and those brave rescuers who went in to help.
Thank you for calling that out. I think sometimes working freelance or working from home, I can get into like kind of a little bubble and forget things like this. And it's bonkers to me that there's so many people that didn't live through it. And so trying to explain what that was like is just bizarre, especially when it informs so much of how our culture is currently. So thank you. Thank you so much for calling that out. I very much appreciate it. All right, y'all, we are going to dive into questions. Now, just a quick reminder, we're going to go through questions that y'all submitted when you registered today. So if you submitted a question and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If you submitted a question and maybe we're tackling it from like a different angle than you intended, or maybe there's extra context or details that we should know, let us know in the chat. If you want us to dive in deeper on a subject matter, a terminology, an acronym, whatever it is, let us know. Okay, y'all came to get value from today's event. I want to make sure that you get that value. So ask early, ask often, and I will try to get to as many questions today as we can. All right, Sheryl, to dive in, within the context of the ever-changing work landscape that we all live in right now, what to you does it mean to be an effective leader?
Henry Kissinger, former U.S. Secretary of State, said the task of a leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. When we look around at the times in which we are living, this is a place we have not been before. And effective leaders, who I will say are inclusive leaders, empower us to be successful in places we've never been before. And it's all about really the kind of leadership that brings out the individual's best so that it can be applied to our collective best. At Pitney Bowes, winning for all by including each. So inclusive leadership in times like these is really, really important.
I'm still sitting back with your initial statement that a leader takes their team somewhere they've never been before. And I'm going to tell you why I love this, because we tread this area a lot, right? The idea of success, right? It's nebulous. It means something different to everybody. And in a lot of ways, it just kind of boils down to like numbers on a page, right? Are you in the red or are you in the black? And I love even more this idea of taking them where they have never been, because if you're going to drive new innovations and new solutions and new products, you need to do something different than what got you where you are. because if you haven't done it yet, you need to change up the formula to do what it is you're trying to do. So I love this a ton. And it really does kind of highlight what it means to be a leader and how there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen there, right? Being a leader means thinking about the other people around you, but you are also trying to make sure that they pass you, that they move on in their careers and either grow apart or grow to the point where they're moving on to different departments. Like, so it really does kind of highlight that it takes a different mindset to be a leader and to be a leader well, as opposed to being an effective employer or an effective teammate. So yeah, I like this. And if y'all have different opinions, let us know in the chat. I want to know what effective leadership has looked like for you in the past.
There's another quote that says, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So it's not just that I was here, but there should be some lasting impact of that.
Yeah, of course. We got people chiming in the chat saying #legacy. And
Absolutely.
It very much goes to what we talk about when it comes to, feeling like you're the only in a room or like you're the first that doesn't kind of fit the mold. It's very important for you to be in that room, but it is also incredibly important that you are not the last new person or the last first or the last only in that room. So, all the chills. This is going to be a good chat, y'all. This is going to be good. Okay, let's keep moving through our questions. Let's talk about the difference between leading and imposing. I'm really interested in this when it comes to the definition between, or the kind of separation between a leader and a supervisor. So let's parse through this. What do you think is the difference there?
Well, and it's all about the words, right? Words matter. And so imposing literally is forcing. It's imposing my will, my order, my way. And that says a lot of things. That speaks to this thought of, by virtue of my quote authority, which may come from hierarchy or title, that I'm the source of truth, and this is the way things are going to be. That's imposing. A leader, the leadership and supervising is overseeing, right? I call it management by surveillance because they're looking, and it implies kind of being kind of hands off, and you do the work and I just look. And neither one of those models, the imposition, because I said so, you will do it, because of my authority, you will do it, and you will do it while I watch, neither one of those is true leadership. Leadership is, again, very empowering. Leaders want to understand, and they listen. They encourage input, and they're open to what the team is thinking and where they're going. In this age, this is leadership is very collaborative. It's not that command and control. It's about, okay, we're here now. I'm not the only brains in the room. I don't have all the experience. I don't have all the expertise, but together we can figure this out. And that is really kind of the essence of inclusive leadership. It's like making that space for the voices and the input and the experiences around you, so that together we get to where we need to go and create value.
Yeah, I very much appreciate this. And as somebody who is very, very much about words and their power, I'm loving that we're kind of diving into not just the semantics, but like what the implications are beyond that. Because you're right. I mean, those are two, there's many ways to be a leader. There's many ways to do it without, in my opinion, necessarily succeeding at being a leader. So I very much appreciate that we're kind of delving into these separate areas here. Okay, to your mind, or maybe in your experience, what have been some of the biggest challenges that people in leadership could encounter?
Oh, there's
I know, right? The list is long, but let's start and kind of knock from the top down.
I think the first thing is that leadership is not a spectator sport. And so you get a little bumped and bruised as the leader. And you take it, right? Because you need to hear all sides, good and bad. You need you grow from challenge and mistake. And that learning is all very valuable, but leadership is very much so not a spectator sport. Leaders also have to worry, though, on the other hand, depending on your approach to leadership, and that's why I keep coming back to inclusive leadership. But leaders can't get too insulated. Oftentimes, leaders are surrounded by people who want them to know only the best. Mm-hmm. And leaders need a very clear, accurate view of what's going on. That's critical. It really is. And so leaders need truth tellers in their life to say, hey, you know what? When you did X, I know what your intention was, but that's not quite how it came off. So leaders continuously need that truth telling and that coaching and mentoring as well, because we're all on this journey. None of us have all the answers. And so going forward as a leader, make sure you don't get insulated and that you have truth tellers in your life. And make sure that you kind of embrace the challenge, because it will be there will be days when you go, wait, I asked for this, and you just say, and you have to push through. You have to keep going.
Okay. I'm getting a couple questions in the chat about if the recording is going to be shared. Yes, absolutely. Everybody that registered will get a link to rewatch this. It takes about 4 to 5 days for us to send that out. You can also head over to our YouTube channel. The recording will be posted there usually within about 15 to 20 minutes of the end of the live stream. So I'll share links for all of this there. And for those asking questions in the chat, thank you. I'm grabbing them as we go. So hopefully we'll be able to get to as many as possible. So please feel free to keep adding those in there. No, I think this is really important to highlight is, it's one of those things that nobody tells you is that people are going to stop telling you things because from yesterday you were here and now you're here and suddenly it's just, everything's different or whatever. And so I think that is really interesting. And it also goes to something we talk about or we have in other chats of that idea of like the importance of building trust between especially if you're the leader, in the rest of your team, like you need to trust them and they need to be able to trust you. So it really does kind of go to the fact that it's not that there's necessarily different concerns when you're in a leadership role, but the stakes are higher, I think. If you're not necessarily understanding what's going on with your team, it's not just you. It's going to affect way more people within your group or within that specific area. I do want to ask a question in the chat here, y'all. How many people, if you're here as a leader, give me a +1 in the chat. And if you're here trying to maybe leadership is on your bucket list and it's something you want to go into, give me a +2 if you're aiming for leadership and you're kind of trying to learn what not to do as you're here. Okay, this next person had a question saying that they're trying to transition into leadership within the next about 3 to 5 years. How should people best prepare themselves if they think that they are, they want to be on this leadership track, and what kind of skills should they work on? So let's take the long view. What do you recommend somebody does in this situation?
Well, the first thing that they're thinking about it now, saying that's where I want to go, that direction, that purpose is really important, because you want to be very clear about why you're trying to go where you're trying to go. If you just want to change in title, that may not be the best direction, right? If you just want some additional perks, that may not be what, this may not be the thing. You may not end up where you really are meant to go. So understanding your direction, spending time thinking about, you know, do you have a personal mission statement? What's my mission? As a human, what's my mission? What am I trying to do in this life? And how then does getting from here to there, either a there I can see or a there I'm seeking, is an important thing to really think about. You also want to put yourself in the presence of leaders just to see what they do. And being in that presence can have a whole, there's a range of things you can do, right? From finding someone you admire or even someone you don't know and shooting them a note and saying, hey, can I do an informational interview with you? I just would like to know how you got to where you are, what you're doing. And you would be surprised. Most people are very, very open and willing to invest the time to do that. Or if it's someone that you are around, say, hey, can I shadow you? Can I go to a meeting or two with you? Because what you want to see is to get a sense of the ins and outs, the relationships, the demands, the pacing, the energy. That's all very important. Now, I say all that, but everyone that I know, and I was just having this conversation about a week or so ago, whenever you get to whatever that next step is, it's still, you still could not have anticipated all that it is. So just get comfortable being uncomfortable. Be prepared to be a little surprised. It's like, I knew this was a challenge, but wow, right? Because you can't possibly know everything before you get to that seat, but you can know more than you do now. The other thing I would say is get involved in a volunteer organization and take a leadership role. There are tons of great organizations out there who need the talents and skills that you have. Get involved. And suddenly you're giving presentations, or you are on a board or presenting to a board, or you are doing research, or you are building relationship capital in the community. So think about the ways in which you can start to experience what it's like being a leader. And I see here someone said, your professional industry membership association, 100%. But there are definitely ways to get your feet wet. And I'm a very, very, very active volunteer. Too much, I think my family would say. But
I'm
think
loving
about
that.
it.
There's people chiming in the chat too. Carissa or Charissa, apologies if I'm mispronouncing, said, find an organization that has a group volunteering for another organization. Women's ERGs are great opportunities. Also Toastmaster groups, in case you're not aware, that's a group where you usually practice public speaking. And then there's many other volunteer orgs. Velma says, great advice. I love that, serving your community while pouring back into your professional development. I mean, nobody says that these things can't work double duty, right? If you're interested in leadership, let's say there are 0 opportunities for you to move into leadership within your current role. Like if you just look at your work ecosystem, look into your interests. I mean, let's be real. There's always somebody trying to do something that they don't really want to run themselves. So look into that. Do you also think that this is a situation where people should make it known at work that they're interested in these kinds of things? Like, if so, how do you recommend people do that?
Depends on your personality, but yes, I do think it is recommended that someone in your sphere at work knows that you are interested in doing more, Now, in many ways, I say it all the time, when you think about career progression, uh, in the old days, as my daughter would say about me, it was more of a climbing the ladder, right? Today, it's a jungle gym. And so when you think about organizations and the size of organizations, even larger organizations can be pretty flat, right? And so your opportunity to grow, to do more, to have more responsibility, to have a different visibility with a different sphere in the organization, whether that's functionally or regionally, that can happen with something that might be considered a lateral, or where you are in place and they keep layering on things for you to do. Now, with that layering on, we hope that you are getting appropriately compensated and recognized for that work you're doing. But you can indeed grow in place. It no longer means necessarily knew this, knew that. It could be right where you are. It could be lateral to where you are, or it can be in truly a very, very different space from where you are. So in saying that, then you want to make sure that I also tell people they should have their own board of directors.
Yeah, I like
that
this.
You are building relationships throughout the jungle gym. So people who may be supporting you currently, people who may be your peers, and those who may be at higher levels, you need those relationships up and down the organization.
Yeah, I like this a lot. It kind of just goes to show, you know, as you're moving on these, as you're moving in this direction, don't let things surprise you or things like take you over if the opportunities don't look like what you thought. Like you know, you're looking for a ride, right? And there's like a horse, or there's zebra after zebra running past, but you're like, no, I'm waiting for a horse. It's like, but that's got 4 legs and can get you where you're going. So what could you take from this opportunity? Because you don't know if there's a horse that's going to come along. So take the opportunity. I'm loving this advice here. So thank you, Sheryl, for diving in. And y'all, I just want to let y'all know. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, that was one of my questions I had to answer about advice to people. And I said, hey, don't be surprised if success doesn't look like what you think it does, or the next move doesn't look like what you think it should. Because in many instances, not all, but in the majority of time, there is no such thing as a small opportunity. So any opportunity that you get, you do it, and you do it well, and you apply your best to it, and you never know who's watching. You never know what that leads to.
Yeah.
So
that's really good. Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah. In case anybody is curious, y'all, of the people that responded, we've got 5 non-leaders as well as 12 current leaders and like 1 or 2 kind of others. So y'all are in good company, whether you're in team, you know, future leadership or current leadership. But yeah, truly, I'm loving this. People are loving your board of directors idea as well. This one is huge. You know, it's nice to have your mom in your corner, but like, she's always going to think you're doing pretty solid. So let's, you know, widen the group that you're asking to people who really know you, have a vested interest in like you doing well, but are also going to be real with you. You can't just have people being like, oh, but you're the best. You're the best that ever. They're so lucky to have you. And they probably are, but like, let's also throw some other opinions in there. Maybe different perspectives. Okay. Now we've talked a little bit about building up a trust environment, right? Let's talk about ways to build a safe work environment for your team? Now, in case anybody's unclear, we're not talking like, OSHA requirements or like physical safety. We're talking like, emotional and psychological safety. How do you encourage that safe environment, and how do you encourage there to be open communication and feedback within that safe sphere?
That's a great question, and it's an important point. I'll paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but he talked about that people hate one another because they don't understand one another. And they don't understand one another because they are separated. And they're separated because they don't communicate. The foundation for a safe space is a space in which we can communicate. I'm not saying that we necessarily have to agree, but we can disagree without being disagreeable. And so this ability to talk and to listen to understand, and as
Not just to respond.
Right? I mean, to really hear versus I'm just holding on for you to stop talking so I can jump in and make my point, right? And I have heard nothing in that process, but the ability to really just talk to one another and to get to know each other. I call it giving each other the grace and space to be the humans that we are. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be valued. Everybody wants this opportunity to do meaningful work, and for the work that they do to make a difference and to be recognized. Everybody wants that. That's why inclusion is so awesome. We all want to be included. Yes. And so creating a safe space is a space where we can assume positive intent. So when Meg walks up and asks me a question, I'm not assuming that she's doing it to try to trip me up. I'm assuming she really wants to know. And so I'm going to give her an answer in that same vein.
Yeah.
And we have to create that space where we can get to know one another, where we can talk to one another, where we can disagree respectfully, and where we can allow each other to put our best on the table.
I think
because oftentimes in some environments, they're not listening to everybody's voice, right? And so you are in the room and you make a suggestion, no one says a word. Someone else repeats what you said 2 minutes later, and everyone is like, oh my gosh, that's great. So this value on the voices of all, this assumption that we all have something worth contributing, is a positive one that actually makes it safe then for us to share our thoughts and ideas, for us to ask questions, for us to not understand but seek.
Yeah. Oh man, y'all, I'm loving so much of this. We've got people in the chat chiming in as well, talking about how their personal board of directors, and Carissa had a really good one here, that you could put people, it doesn't have to be people who are available to you, but somebody that they could put themselves in that person's shoes to examine the problem, kind of reframe things for yourself. The example they gave was like saying Brene Brown is on your personal board of directors. You could even tell Chat GPT to like be her and give you feedback for a question. And I'm loving this. Now I know, Sheryl, this is a little bit off, not necessarily out of pocket, but like question we got in the chat. It's a little bit off from the beaten path that we had, but one person asked about how AI could improve leadership and how it might detract from it or its effect on DEI. Is this something you want to touch on at all? I know this is like, we did not prep you for anything in this vein, but I'm loving this chime in here, and wanted to touch on it if we could.
I will just touch on it very briefly. From a learning perspective, leadership is about learning, continuous learning. So I need to know about this whole range of technologies. And while I delight in having my 21-year-old roll her eyes when I ask her to do something for me, I delight even more when I show her that I already know how to do it.
Oh, that's satisfying, right? That's just gotta feel so good.
Right. So from a learning perspective, we need to know, but there are some definitely some applications. One application that I was thinking of, there's a thing called inclusive meetings, right? Mm-hmm. And where everyone, there's transparency in what the meeting's about. There's not just an agenda, but maybe even an establishment of, the objective of this meeting is, or by the time we leave this meeting, we will have done, right? Mm-hmm. There's participation by all in the meeting. And then after the meeting, there's some notes about follow-up. Well, AI, Zoom is introducing an AI that will summarize your meetings for you. So,
well, like that.
And that helps on multiple levels. That keeps everybody with, here we go, one source of truth, because I may have heard this and you may have heard that. But when we get this summary, no, this is what was said. And that can be very important. So there are definitely ways to use technology to make sure that we are all operating from the same set of facts, that we all have access to what may have been discussed in a meeting or at a time when we weren't there, that we can watch the video, that we can do some delayed participation. Some people aren't very vocal. Believe it or not, I'm one of those people. I don't, in a meeting, you won't necessarily hear me say a lot. I'm not that person.
A lot of us aren't. It makes sense, because there's a lot of people that you need 8 seconds to process what you've been told. Maybe you're trying to figure out a way to present an idea that nobody's said before. So you need to kind of sit back and be like, all right, what have we tried thus far? Absolutely. As much of a verbal processor as I am way better communicating in text than I am. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes, I love this.
So being able to do exactly that, if I know in advance that this meeting is going to be about reaching a decision on the launch date for a program, I may be able to write you some great rationale for why I think it should launch on this date and send it in advance. And then the meeting leader, that inclusive leader, will be sure and read it or incorporate my perspective, even if I'm sitting there, right there. So there's tons of ways to use technology to include and connect, and we should definitely do that. But of course, you've heard, there's always a double-edged sword with technology. Yeah. So, but yes, there are definitely positive ways to do that.
I like it. Okay, y'all, we've got a little less than 20 minutes left in today's session. So we're going to save about 5 of those at the very end to go over some more information about Pitney Bowes, what their company culture is like, tips for somebody who's interviewing. So stick around for those. But if you have a question that you want to make sure we get to, send it in the chat. I'm going to do my best to get through all of them, but I can tell you right now, we are not going to get through all the questions y'all submitted at registration. So if you got them, send them in. So hopefully we can get to as many as we can. Sheryl, I'm going to jump around a little bit in our questions. Apologies for taking stuff out of order for you. But I want to make sure we touch on as much of this as we can. Let's talk about managing neurodivergent teammates. This has been something that's become more of a topic DEI conversations in the last year and a half or so. So if y'all aren't clear on neurodivergency, let me know in the chat. I can give you a quick explainer. But what should people know if they are in a leadership role about ways to best manage neurodivergent teammates?
You know, some of the stuff we were just talking about in terms of if you have a neurodivergent teammates and we're all in a meeting, say one of those teammates has a processing speed issue, right? Slowing the conversation down in the room, pausing. And I don't mean in a way that is unnatural, but you see that beat, you just, and it gives people time to think. If you often with neurodivergency, and it's all about, we process information in different ways. Some people understanding that some are more visual learners. So infographics, charts, things that you can summarize more visually can help. Some are auditory learners. So being able to listen to this, right? As opposed to go back and play the tape, gives this opportunity. So it's about the communication styles. It can be about interaction. If someone has dyslexia, and they have to read something, it may take them a little longer. And they may not be comfortable reading aloud, right? So it's just being aware that just like a computer has different processing systems, our brains, all of our brains are neurodivergent. All of our brains are different. And so the way we run information through varies, and we just need to stay, again, I'm back to communication and connection, but connect and communicate in a variety of ways. And whether you're neurodivergent or not, I have a cartoon mind. So give me a chart, give me a picture, give me something.
The visuals, yeah.
The visuals, and I get it.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you touched on dyslexia as well, because this is one of those things where neurodivergence can look like anything depending on all kinds of situations. Like I have bipolar disorder, so that's part of what I live with. But there are many other people that the neurodivergent tent covers a lot of people who may or may not consider themselves within it, depending on their personal preferences. Now, obviously, because that covers so much ground, when you're talking about these communication angles, what do you suggest leaders do, right? So let's say I'm in my leadership role. I know I have a person on my team who's neurodivergent. Maybe I'm not specifically sure what that means. What do I do?
See, in our environment here at Pitney Bowes, we would ask.
Yeah.
So I'd have a conversation with the person and say, hey, I would really, I want to make sure that we can connect in ways that are most appropriate and in ways that really would be of greatest value to you. Is there anything in particular that you would like for me to do? Or I was thinking of doing blah, blah, blah. What do you think about that? And to actually have a conversation about it. One of the, in my bio, I've done speech writing. I communicated literally, excuse me, about virtually every topic there is. And what I have seen is that as humans, we don't have good language skills around difference.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be able to communicate non-judgmentally
Yeah.
about different. Different is just different. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And so being neurodivergent, being any other way you want to identify, is just different.
Yeah.
And so we have to establish the ability to talk about that without judgment. We walk into a garden that'll have a carnation, a mum, an iris, and some lilies. They're all different colors, sizes, smell differently. And we go into that garden and say, oh, what a beautiful garden. And we admire each and every one of those flowers. And we talk about, oh, they're different colors and they're this and they're that. Why don't we do that in a room full of beautiful people?
Well, and it also highlights what we've been socialized, right? So
Right.
I mean, I remember when I was younger, I'm 37, and in high school, being called fat was like the worst thing in the freaking world. And yet, when people are now talking and saying like, oh, blah, 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 like I have still caught myself. Somebody, like one of my friends is like, oh, well, I'm just a fat girl. And I have absolutely caught myself going, you're not fat, you're beautiful. In what world does fat mean not beautiful? Right? So it does kind of go back to, if you are uncomfortable having these conversations, look at yourself. Okay. Are you uncomfortable saying and utilizing terms like this because they've always been used negatively in your experience? Or are you shying away from these terminologies and these like statements and things because you just don't know what they mean? And so you need to be like educating yourself a little bit more. And this goes back to what you said earlier, that being in leadership is being constantly learning. You have to be in a state of continuous learning and continuous curiosity about your team. No, thinking that you know what they need is not going to increase or elevate your own skills in doing that. So I'm loving how all of these answers are kind of fitting together here as we go. Okay, next question. This one's a little bit more specific. If you're on the line here and you want to give us details, let us know. This person says, I recently started leading a group whose previous manager generated quite a toxic environment. Do you have any advice on how to best transform their work experience? Most of them just seem to be very drained and disengaged. So let's talk about it. Most leaders don't inherit a perfect team or a perfect situation.
Yeah.
So how would you handle this? Have you had to do this in your experience?
I've actually had to do this, excuse me. I've had to do this in a volunteer organization, actually. And it takes time. Well, it takes intent. And B, it's very action oriented. And C, it takes time, right? So from an intent perspective, I know I sound like a broken record, but we're going to roll back to communication, both one-on-ones with everybody on the team. So how's it going? How does being in this group make you feel? What would you like to see done differently? Da, 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 right? Do that one-to-one.
Yeah.
As a
Well,
group.
it's because they were in the past situation. So they're in the best place to tell you, like, here's what we weren't getting.
Right, right. So you need to hear that individually. You need to hear it from as a group. So, hey, team, let's do this. A great way, and it comes from the analytic side of me, but a great way to do this is also to do it by survey, like Survey Monkey. So they're not identifiable if they're not, because they probably won't be comfortable being identifiable. So maybe the one-on-ones you may not get as far as you'd like to get, but give them an opportunity. Everybody does a survey, and then we have a group meeting about the survey. Hey, what I heard from you is
I
that
like
you
that.
would like to see this change. So let's talk about creating a plan to be the change we want to see. How do we do that? How do we make that happen? Right.
Yeah.
But you've got to incorporate the voices. Equity is all about meeting people where they are. And people are going to be in very different places on that team, depending on how much, unless they had an equal opportunity abuser, depending on how much they suffered at the hands of the last person, people may be in different places. So that's why the one-on-ones are important, but the surveys are important as well. But it really is, it's the actions. And usually in most of those shutdown situations, there's no free flow of information. So come in and be very transparent. It's amazing the amount of change that people are willing to go through willingly if they know it's coming. And if you've given some kind of context for why, you've been very transparent about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and trying to communicate, like, we're trying not to do this the same way. I love this idea of giving them the chance for that anonymous survey, but then coming back to it with a group meeting, because you can still operate from that place of anonymity. Like, okay, here's what I'm seeing, like broad strokes wise, a ton of people are really in favor of this. A couple people are on both sides of this issue. So could we discuss this? And it honestly might just be a situation where being able to retain the anonymity, but also knowing that other people are on the same page as them, or other people also answered this way, could really help open up those scenarios. Because if people have been burned by leadership in the past, they're not going to keep opening up about what they need when what they've been shown is that they're not going to get it. So I very much love this advice here. Love this. Ooh, awesome. Carissa had asked that she sometimes found one-on-ones really challenging because you ask someone how they're doing and they just say good. Do you have any tips to dig in deeper there? I've honestly just had good results from, like, okay, but how are you actually doing?
I've done both.
Okay.
So another way to get at how you're doing is, what would you like to see changed? What's your favorite thing about this group or the work you're doing? What do you think? What would you like to see change so we could all do it better? How does it make you feel?
Carla just said, how are you feeling? Not how are you doing?
Yeah. So there are ways to get under it, but it may take a little. That's why I said it takes intent, and ultimately it takes time. It really does, because after having this discussion and after saying, hey, so we've decided now that we're going to do XYZ, then we have to be about the business of doing XYZ and being very focused on it. And you as the leader role modeling it, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think this is good. Okay, we're going to go to our last slide and touch a little bit more on Pitney Bowes, but I've got one more question. This was asked a couple different ways, so I want to see if we can get to like a quick answer about this one. This person had said, how do you deal with a situation where you're getting promoted from a team member to a team leader? The other way that this was asked, hold on here, I don't want to lose it. The other way it was asked was like how to handle becoming leadership and jumping over more tenured employees. So let's say you're becoming a leader, but you're either still on the same team or you're jumping over people who've maybe been there longer. In those situations, what do you recommend the leader do, or how do they handle that?
I think humility is always important, and really coming again, either individually and or collectively with, we're in this together and we're going to co-create the success and a better future. And I need you. No one of us has all the answers. No one of us has all the skills. I need you. And again, having a conversation, and it's one thing to say it, but when you're in a crunch and it's, who do you call? Do you close up and do it all yourself? Or do you say, hey, team, look, we've got this, and this going on. I really need your support in working through how do we weave this all together. I know you've had some experience doing that. I've seen you do, etc. So it's about really, that's why I started with humility. Being self-aware enough and emotionally intelligent enough to know not everybody in the room is happy. And there's some saying, why her, why not me, and feeling kind of bad about it, right? And so for you to be able to say, you know what, I'm thrilled to be here, but I didn't plan it, but I'm glad I'm here because together we can make a difference.
Y'all, how many times a day do I do this and I still lose my mute button? Thank you for your patience there. No, I think this is excellent, excellent, excellent advice. And there's so many people chiming in saying they're really loving this discussion. They love some of the suggestions you're providing. So thank you so much, Sheryl. Okay, so we've got 4 minutes left. These are some questions that we had asked of Sheryl regarding Pitney Bowes before today's event. Can you expand a little bit on the company culture for us? You had described it as people forward. What does that look like in practice?
Wow, it's such a great company. It is just awesome. People care. I walked in over 30 years ago. I know you're just shocked. You can't believe it. I was a child prodigy. But when I walked in over 30 years ago, it was everything from our benefits. I mean, a range of benefits for every age and stage in life, to the constant town halls and huddle meetings and accelerator calls where trying to keep everyone informed on this is what's going on. But in every room, it's always about our people. How are our people doing? 9/11, I was head of crisis communications. And we had a couple of hundred employees who were within the vicinity of the two buildings, and we had about 100 in the building. And our agenda, and as we worked through that for the next 2-3 weeks, our people, our clients, our communities. That was our agenda.
Mm-hmm.
We start with our people. Back in the 30s, our CEO said people are our most important asset. 2023, our CEO says, the Drucker quote about culture eating strategy for lunch. Well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Without the people engaged, feeling included and energized, it just doesn't happen. So we are very people forward. We lean into taking care of our people.
I love that. Okay, last question here. Your top tip for someone who's interviewing. Are there any opportunities in your personal history that have not looked the way you thought? And could you share one with us?
In terms of not looking like what I thought it was going to be.
As you're like when you're interviewing, if you're trying to keep your eyes open and not be tripped up by what it looks like. Have you ever had to do this in your career?
Yeah, I think you always have to really listen. You're seeking to understand, you're trying to look beyond the words. Sometimes it's about, the whole human experience, the verbal and nonverbal communications. And but my thought there was, don't dismiss an opportunity because it doesn't appear to be glamorous enough, or it doesn't appear to be hip or cool, or it's just a plain old company. And I definitely had earlier in my career, certainly went to work for a group that was buying a bus line.
Okay.
How savvy is that? But they created the country's, at the time, largest bus line, and I was doing communications for them, and I did some of the most advanced communications I had ever done in my career. Everything from satellite media tours to the use of celebrity spokesperson. It was for Greyhound, and we had John Madden because we gave him a bus.
Yep.
To being transparent with reporters coming in, listening to town hall meetings. Some of the most advanced communications work I have ever done in my life for a bus company.
I love it. All right, y'all. All right, that's going to bring us to the end of time, but I just want to say, Sheryl, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your expertise as well as your time with us, and thank you to Pitney Bowes for loaning you to us for the afternoon. This has been wonderful, and I really hope that we get to do it again soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
Of course. Big thank you to all of our attendees as well. Obviously, these events don't exist without you, so we're so happy to see so many of you join us. I love the participation we were seeing in the chat. Absolutely so happy and thankful for all of you for coming today. You just took an hour out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career, so please pat yourselves on the back. If you're a little treat person, do that. Cookie, gold star, whatever it is. Really, thank you so much for doing this for yourselves, y'all. That's going to bring us to the end of time today, but I hope that if this was your first Power to Fly event, it will not be your last. If you're one of our frequent flyers, I cannot wait to see y'all join us again on another event. Thanks again. Bye, y'all.